Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast.
Here's a sneak peek into what we're going to cover in this week's episode of the Echo Tips podcast.
This device is at volume 8. This device is at volume 5.
All right. Well, hello, and welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. It's good to have you all with us this week, you returning listeners and you new listeners as well. And for you new listeners, we'll give you a little rundown about what this whole podcast is all about here in just a second. But first, at a top level about our topic, our theme, our objectives for this week connected with the Amazon Echo, we're going to be talking about volume. That is the loudness of your Amazon Echo. And you may have known that there was obviously one volume, and you probably knew that there was a second volume control. But did you know that there was even a third? And perhaps maybe even more than that. I was thinking there was maybe as many as 4 at least when I started to dig into this topic, and I haven't addressed this in a long time. Plus the inconsistencies that we run across, well, that's going to be another topic we're going to talk about today. Bugs related to this, volume control, audio groups, and we'll maybe briefly talk about podcast playback because it has come up with some of our listeners out in the audience as well. But before we delve into all that goodness with our Amazon Echo, I'm going to mention to our new listeners what the show is all about. Welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. I'm your host, David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill, based here in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Southwest Virginia. In our podcast, our nuggetized weekly episodes, we try to keep it somewhere in the 15 to 20, 25 minute range as a rule, except for when we have big old omnibus episodes where we try to kind of put all the material together, maybe on a particular topic, all into one giant episode. And we do have just a handful of those out there that you can go back and check about alarms and I believe reminders. And we did kind of an omnibus about all things AI related as well in the beta form and other things that we've experimented with AI on our favorite A-Lady devices. But as a whole, our show now in its, actually we're summing up our 6th season and about to start on a new one here, but in our back catalog of over 300 episodes, we have covered all sorts of stuff. So if you have questions, topics, things you want to know how to do, by all means, go back and check our back catalog, or you can even reach out to us to ask us to kind of dust off an old goodie and maybe revisit it. So that could be use cases for parents, caregivers, seniors, children-specific features, home automation, games, music, podcast playback. Like I said, we're going to talk about some bugs with that today. Just all sorts of things we've covered over the past seasons. And because of your listenership and support, we're going to continue to press on, and we have support from the Virginia Board for the Blind to continue another season starting in September, another whole year of activity. So we're very appreciative of that as well. But before we delve into our topic, at its core being volume and different volume controls and how that works or doesn't work, before we get into all that goodness, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast. And then, as always, we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.
Well, hello again, and welcome back to the Echo Tips podcast. As I mentioned this week, we're going to be kind of touching on what would seemingly be a very simple topic, but an important one, and that is connected with volume controls in your Amazon Echo. And these have kind of changed over the years, and there seems to be at times different bugs that have really manifested themselves in different ways. But I wanted to kind of dust the topic off. I recently ran into it again with some home automation routines that I was working with. I was like, why is this not quite working? And then, oh yeah, Dave, you're such a bonehead, right? Remember, this is how that works. And so I felt, I needed to share that with y'all. The multiple volume controls of the Amazon Echo, how it works, how it doesn't work, some inconsistencies I continue to run into, and we'll just briefly maybe touch on some other things connected with audio groups and something a listener brought out that I had addressed a long time back about podcast playback and some bugs in that. So to get started, I typically would warn you to shut off your echoes in hearing distance of me. However, for the studio purposes today, I'm using my Echo Dot, which has a wake word of Z-I-G-G-Y instead of a lady or A-L-E-X-A. And so I don't think you need to worry about that unless your echo is set to the Z-I-G-G-Y, in which case you may want to mute its ears. But let me give you a quick demonstration when I'm talking about multiple volume controls. I'll show you the three and then we'll discuss them. So right now I have it hooked up. Let's say, Ziggy, what is your volume set to?
This device is at volume 8.
Okay, there's volume 8. Okay, so if I was to start playing music, that's what it's going to be playing at. Ziggy, what is your alarm volume set to?
Your alarm and timer volume is set to 9.
Okay, all right. And now we're going to disconnect our echo from the soundboard. So you're not going to hear this as well. It's going to be coming in over the microphone, but that way you can hear how these answers change. So I'm going to disconnect it from the Bluetooth that pipes it into our mixer. So just hang on for a second. Ziggy, what is your volume set to?
This device is at volume 5.
All right. Ziggy, what is your alarm volume set to?
Your alarm and timer volume is set to 9.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to mute her ears here, although it's probably really not necessary. I'm probably not going to say the wake word again. All right, so there we learned maybe something new that we didn't know about volume before. And that is that not only do you have the two core volumes, which you would typically think of, and for most cases, when you're just interacting with the raw Amazon Echo, it's the only thing you're going to need to really worry about. So just to cover at a high level what that's all about. So you have your core volume, which controls her voice feedback and any kind of music she's playing at the time, or a podcast, or any kind of content in general, right? Like that. Now, alternatively, I will mention just real quick, that is a little different. There are other voice assistants, I think like Siri, who actually can have separate volumes for the music playback and for her voice, which is subtly different. But anyway, but in this case, the one core volume controls the voice level and the music playback. The second volume you want to be aware of, and I think this makes pretty much good sense, is the alarm volume. Now, that could be alarm, timers. I have recently learned, too, I'm pretty sure that the jingles that you would play if you build routines using the standard sound jingles, they'll play at that alarm or timer volume or in that kind of volume. And that can be set totally independently and verbally. You could just say, hey, lady, set the alarm volume to whatever it is between 1 and 10. And it will make a notation and remember that alarm volume. Now, I think that probably makes pretty good sense if you think about it. You may be listening to some like soft music or an audiobook at night to go to sleep or something like that, but you still want your alarm clock to be at the right volume in the morning, or maybe not so loud, Either way, you could see why you would contextually maybe want different volumes. So Amazon knew that a long time ago, and that's pretty much been in the devices for a long, long time. I do think the ability to verbally control the alarm volume may have been added later, or maybe we just learned about it later, because I don't remember that going all the way back. But those are the two core volumes. But you may have noticed when I disconnected the Amazon Echo from the mixer, it gave different volume levels when it was being recorded over here in the microphone. Hopefully you heard the different numbers that it read back, except for the alarm volume. So here is the difference. When I connected in here to the studio, it's coming over a Bluetooth receiver. Now, for all intents and purposes, it might as well be coming over Bluetooth headphones or Bluetooth speakers. And many of you in the audience may use a Bluetooth speaker with your Amazon Echo, maybe to take your music with you out on the porch or an audiobook so you can sit outside and enjoy the sunshine. Or maybe you have, like me, like a waterproof speaker in your bathroom or shower so that you may want to use that. And so in all those contexts, and in the one that we just demonstrated here in studio, it connects to the Bluetooth, and then it has another volume setting for that. That volume is the, for all intents and purposes, traditional sound volume of music and the A-Lady's feedback. And that volume is specific to the Bluetooth connection. And when I disconnected, you could hear that's why the volume was different. So its core volume on its internal speaker has one volume setting, and then for Bluetooth, it has another volume setting. And so that may be a little confusing, but those are two separate things. Now, historically, well, I don't know if historically is the right word. Recently, in recent times, it seems to be doing a pretty good job of remembering those when I use it. And now, historically in the past, it has been pretty buggy as snot, whether it would remember it or not. But it seems to be doing a pretty good, fair job as of it right now. Now, I wasn't entirely certain until I practiced this for y'all today that there wasn't a fourth volume setting, because I wasn't convinced that the alarm volume would be the same over the Bluetooth or over just the typical normal speaker that's built in. But it is. And you might have noticed that in the feedback, it gave the exact same number for both of them. And so when I set it on one, the alarm volume is the same on the other. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. It's kind of weird in the sense because when you pipe, if you've ever piped the audio from an A-Lady to a Bluetooth speaker, even though it's all digital, the concept of like volume, like an analog, it's actually the power going over the wire to the speaker, is kind of like an abstract at that point because it's all digital information going to a chip in your Bluetooth speaker or Bluetooth headphones. But nonetheless, with my speaker in my bathroom anyway, and maybe that's because it's an old Bluetooth speaker, I don't know, I need to have the volume on my Echo at a certain level, or I can't really turn the volume up on my Bluetooth speaker very much. And I got to hit a sweet spot. 6 is about right for me. My Echo in my bedroom will pipe the audio to the Bluetooth speaker in my bathroom. And if I have it set to 6, then I have a pretty good range with my volume up and volume down. If I have it too low, like on volume 3, and I go to the bathroom, I can't really probably get the music up very high, or I'm having to max out the volume on the speaker to even make it, somewhat listenable. And conversely, if I have it too high, I got to find the Goldilocks. So 6 seems to work pretty good for me. And the good thing about this is generally, knock on wood, it's been remembering it whenever I turned on the Bluetooth speaker. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a long time when I've discussed this in the past, you may have remembered it wasn't always that way. In fact, I still have a routine on my bedroom Echo every day at like 7 o'clock or whenever in the morning. It adjusts its volume specifically because I anticipate taking a shower soon and turning that speaker on. And I always wanted to move it to that Goldilocks zone so it was good to go. Now, probably not necessary anymore because it looks like it's probably holding its state, but that was a problem in the past, so that's why I highlighted it to y'all today. Now, all of this happened, resurfaced in my brain recently because I set up a shower routine. That's right, I have a shower routine. It plays a certain set of music, and at the appropriate times, it will beep and chime and tell me the time, and then it'll play like, "Hey, Dave, you need to get out of the shower now. You're running out of time." and then it will disconnect from, well, this is what it should do. It doesn't do this. It should disconnect from the Bluetooth speaker in the bathroom and then project the audio across all the speakers in my house. It transitions, and I set the volume and all the echoes in the house, and then it projects the music out throughout the house. So it's kind of like me transitioning out of the bathroom and going out and putting on my clothes and getting ready to get out the door, get all my things together. So the problem I ran into, though, and I had a head scratcher for a moment, was, okay, what, because after I'm supposed to be getting out of the shower, I set it to play on all the speakers in the house. And then I say set all the speakers to a certain volume level, because God knows what I had them set to the night before. So I set them all to a nice level so I'm not like blowing my neighbor away. And it wasn't always quite working. Now, then it occurred to me that I didn't have it in the routine disconnecting from the Bluetooth speaker. So it was still actively connected to the Bluetooth speaker when it was trying to make the modification of volumes across the entire system. And that was causing some goof ups in it not adjusting its own volume, or it was adjusting the volume that it presently was implementing on the speaker. But when it disconnected, remember, it has a separate volume for its internal speaker. It was still set to like a high level 6. So I was like blowing myself out in my home bedroom. So I was trying to figure out what was going on, and that was the reason. So if I wanted this to work appropriately, I should build into the routine that it disconnects from the Bluetooth speaker and then adjust all the volumes on all the echoes at the same time. Because when it's in that mode, it's only adjusting the volume to the Bluetooth speaker. So hopefully that makes some sort of sense. But it was kind of a cockamamie kind of thing. Now, as I've mentioned before, some of this is kind of buggy and has been historically across time. And I feel like, they had a lot of cutbacks in Amazon, and we're seeing that creakiness in a lot of this stuff. The music playback, the podcast playback, audio group playback, which is a crying shame because it's one of the really awesome features of the Amazon Echo, the ability to play your music on your Echoes across your entire house, and then to use Bluetooth to do a synchronization mechanism so that they're all in sync. And it's a really beautiful kind of thing when it works right. But historically, it's also been kind of buggy at times, like trying to get it to work right. But so far, it seems to be working lately. I've been using it again pretty daggone well. Now let's transition over to the podcast thing, which I had another listener mention and I had discussed in a previous episode some while back, that I got to the point, and I still almost at that point, where I pretty much do not listen to long format podcast on my Amazon Echoes anymore. I just can't. I can't do it. I was losing my ever-loving mind. And here's why. Because I was constantly losing sync, time code syncs. So I would say, I was an hour into a 2-hour podcast. I knew it was 2 hours long. I'd say, fast forward another 20 minutes, and it would say there's only 5 minutes left in the episode. It got so bad at times that I would be saying fast forward and would say there's no time left in the episode, and it's still playing the show. So its time sync was completely off kilter. The other thing that was really causing me to lose my mind was that, and I don't know if this is still happening. I'd love to hear feedback from y'all in the audience. This is still happening to you. But I would be listening to long format podcasts, maybe an hour and a half, like a Twitch show, like This Week in Google or This Week in Tech or This Week in Windows Weekly. And I'd be 45 minutes in, and it would just jump back 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And if I wasn't paying close attention, I'd be like, wait a minute, what are they replaying? Didn't I hear this? And I would be like, I'm hearing this again, right? Yeah. And it was clearly, and it happened again and again and again. And as I think one of our listeners highlighted, I know I highlighted at the time, I tried different podcast players, or I should say, databases that it draws from. I think it's probably the problem. It's not really connected to the mechanics of the playback. It's just a database it draws on. But I tried TuneIn. I've tried Apple. I've tried Amazon Music. I've tried a variety of these. I can't remember if I did iHeart or not, but I've tried a variety of these and ran into the exact same problems again and again. Between the time sync not being right and thinking, oh, there's not 20 minutes left in the episode, or it being completely off, and the fact it would completely lose track of where it was. I just couldn't take it anymore, right? So now generally, listening to shorter form podcast, anything probably an hour or under, it doesn't seem to be a terribly obvious problem, or it doesn't seem to surface quite as bad. I think the time sync problem is still probably there. It's not as chronic or obvious, or I don't have as much need to fast forward and rewind as I typically would in a shorter form podcast. But I generally don't listen to anything over like 45 minutes to an hour on the Amazon Echoes because I just I couldn't take it anymore. Now, admittedly, they may be fixed, and I would love to hear from the audience if they're having good success now. But I led to the point where I was listening to the longer shows on a different mechanism on my HomePod and not listening. So like Double Tap is an hour or less every day, or something like Tom Merritt's Daily Tech News show I would listen to, a shorter format. But anything really much longer than that, I just kind of threw my hands in the air, and that's the reason why. And by all accounts, I don't know if it's really ever improved. I'm pretty sure the time syncing things is just as messed up as it's ever been, But once again, I would love to hear feedback from the audience. But if you have had this happen to you, you are not alone. It is happening. It has definitely happened in the past and probably is still happening now. But hopefully, here this fall, I hope Amazon really gets an infusion into our A-ladies of money and funding, get some developers back on this task, and start pulling this stuff together as they roll out the remarkable A-Lady AI edition. So, anyway, if you have any thoughts or suggestions for a future episode, we would love to hear your feedback. You can reach out to us via email at info@goodwillvalleys.com. Just earmark in the subject line that you're trying to reach David Ward of the Echo Tips podcast or the New Vision program, and that message will be directed to me. You can also put a post on Facebook or Twitter, now known as X, and once again, just earmark it for Dave of the Echo Tips podcast, and with your thought or suggestion for a future episode. Or we'd, like I said, love to hear your feedback about whether you've experienced these kind of problems before as well. Oh, that almost made me forget something. So with the volume controls that we dealt with today, I was dealing with an Amazon Echo Dot, the newest generation. I admittedly have not done a lot of this with the Echo Pop, so I don't know if it has the exact same chipset and issues. But I have a brand new Echo Show 8 here that I got for the classroom. You may remember for all the AI demos. And I used it in a similar fashion with this Bluetooth mechanism to check the different audio functions. It looks kind of like it's supposed to work the same way, but to be honest, it was so buggy, I couldn't use it for this demonstration, like the connecting to the Bluetooth and disconnecting from the Bluetooth and changing the volumes up and down. It was just so inconsistent. And I believe a couple of days ago, I pretty much crashed the unit that I had to pretty much unplug it and plug it back in again. So your Echo shows may vary in the way they do this. It may be just unique to this newest model. I don't know. I honestly usually use the Echo Dots to connect to Bluetooth speakers and not the shows. But your mileage may vary on the Echo shows. I'd love to hear feedback about that as well. But on this Echo Show 8 that I have, the newest generation, I've had very, very poor experiences interacting with this Bluetooth receiver that I use, at least here with the mixer. And that could be it. It could be just unique. It's an older Bluetooth spec, and maybe it's something as simple as that. But I just had really inconsistent results, and that's why I didn't use that for our demo today. Well, anyway, we love having you with us this week, and by all means, go out there and change your volume and have a good time. And we thank you for listening.
This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. And we thank you for listening. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision.